מזמור לדוד, אדוני רוי לא אחסר, בנות אשר ירביצני על מי מנוחות ינחלני, נפשי שובב, ינחני במגלי צדק למען שמו, גם כי אלך בגצל מוות, לא ירא כי אתה עמדי, שבטך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צורריי, תשענת ושמן ראשי כוסי רוויה, אך טוב וחסד ירדיפוני כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים. Friends, I've chanted for you the words of our 23rd Psalm. In these moments when our hearts are breaking, when we are in search of comfort, in search of a sense of shalom, we oftentimes turn towards the words of the psalmist. And so in this moment, I invite those of you who are familiar with these words to recite them together with me as we say, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever." In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we will remember her. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we will remember her. In the opening buds and in the rebirth of spring, we will remember her. In the blueness of sky and in the warmth of summer, we will remember her. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we will remember her. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we will remember her. And when we are weary and in need of strength, we will remember her. When we are lost and sick at heart, we will remember her. And when we have joys we yearn to share, we will remember her. So long as we live, she too will live, for she is now a part of us, as we remember Bonnie Baskin. To her children, to Glenn and Lisa, and also to Emily and Brett, and to her brother and sister-in-law, to Harvey and Linda, to her grandchildren, Jerry, Nehemiah, and Miles, and to her many beloved nieces, nephews, great-nieces, and great-nephews, and to all the members of this beautiful and large family, and to so many friends who are here, those of you who are able to gather here in person, those of you who join us today via live stream. Our hearts are joined, are united in this moment as we remember and as we also find the strength to celebrate the life of your beloved Bonnie. Our sages in their wisdom have taught us that birth is a beginning and death a destination, and life is a journey from childhood to maturity and from youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength or strength to weakness and often back again, from health to sickness. and back we pray to health again. From offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, and from pain to compassion, from grief to understanding, and from fear to faith. From defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, and life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage to life everlasting. Bonnie's journey of more than 80 years began here in Cleveland. She was born on May 20th, 1944, to Florence and George Boardman. She came into this world during some of the most challenging years in our nation's history. In her earliest years, Bonnie, along with her older brother Harvey, grew up in the famed Kinsman neighborhood near the intersection of 139th and Byron. Harvey, as we spoke yesterday, you recalled those earlier years. Your father, George, worked as a bus driver for the Cleveland Transit System, and your mother, Florence, was a homemaker who tended to the needs of you and your sister. And Harvey, you shared that you and Bonnie grew up in a very happy home, and yours was indeed a close-knit family. And there was also your large extended family. You remembered, Harvey, that so many of the family lived very close by, and this made for wonderful times and for the sweetest memories for you and for Bonnie. When Bonnie was in elementary school, the family moved to Belmar Road in Cleveland Heights. Now, Harvey, there was a 6-year age gap between you and your baby sister. So by the time you were in college, you might not have had so much in common with Linda as an early teen. But you noted as the two of you grew into your young adult years that there was a bit of a shift in the relationship, and the two of you grew to be very close, not just as brother and sister, but as the dearest of friends. Harvey, you described your sister to me as one who was honest and who would always tell it like it was. You said that Bonnie was a loving person, a good daughter, and she was someone who placed family above all. Bonnie attended Cleveland Heights High School, where she enjoyed a great group of friends. And these friends, many of them, most of them, grew to become what we'll call lifelong friends. I had the rare but special opportunity to meet 4 of these lifelong friends yesterday at the family's home: Bev, Cookie, Judy, and Noreen. From these ladies, I learned that Bonnie was the best friend ever. They told me that she was the glue that held the friends together, and, in your words, she was the leader of the pack. Following her high school graduation, Bonnie took several classes to learn medical transcribing, and this became her career for many years as she worked for doctors in private practice, she worked at hospitals, and she worked at the Achievement Center for Children. Now, it was one of those dear girlfriends, Bev, who has to take credit for introducing Mel Baskin to Bonnie Boardman. And Bev, you shared a story with me that your friend Mel was returning home from serving our country, and he said to you, "I want to be fixed up with a nice girl." And so, Bev, you did that. You thought of the nicest girl you could, and you fixed Mel up with Bonnie, and the two of you, you and Bonnie, went on a double date with Mel and some other guy. I just realized you never gave me that information. But at the end of the evening, it was time to drop Mel off at his home, and instead Mel said, "Don't take me home. I'm staying with her." And you know what? That's exactly what Mel did for the next 46 years. He stayed with her. Mel and Bonnie married on April 4th, 1965, and remained in this loving union until the time of his passing. You know, in the Jewish wedding ceremony, the couple exchanges the cup of wine not once but twice. And in that second moment, we have what's called the Sheva Brachot, the 7 wedding blessings. And in these blessings, the bride and groom are described as Re'im Ahuvim, loving partners. Loving partners. I feel after meeting with the family and hearing the stories that this is exactly what they represented to their family. This loving partnership, loving companions. Together, Mel and Bonnie enjoyed simple, beautiful, meaningful things. They loved day trips and weekend getaways, any reason to drive a bit and find a quaint, locally owned restaurant, or enjoy some shopping at a little out-of-the-way antique shop. They also had a wonderful time traveling to London. And together, Bonnie and Mel loved going out on the weekends with their friends or gathering with the Cousins Club. Bonnie loved attending the ballet and musical theater performances. Mel, not so much, but he would reluctantly go along with Bonnie most of the time. But together, most importantly, more than the little day trips, Bonnie and Mel were all about family. Their children, their grandchildren, Harvey and Linda, and I have to mention the nieces, nephews, great-nieces, and great-nephews. I've really never seen something quite like this, where we have nieces and nephews who feel like their aunt is really their second mother. The same thing with the great-nieces and the great-nephews, and we're going to hear from some of them in just a moment, but it was quite remarkable to see the closeness, the love, the care of this beautiful family. And speaking of grandchildren, Jerry, Nehemiah, and Miles, I so enjoyed speaking with you yesterday. These young men told me that Grammy, or Grandma Bonnie, was a grandmother who they described with the following words. They said she was positive, she always had a smile, and they said when we would hang out, we would watch Avatar on TV, apparently something the parents didn't know about. But they found out about it yesterday. The boys also told me that she was a Grammy who would read to you. She was funny, silly, and peppy. Quote, she was basically everything to us. Grandma Bonnie they described as confident and happy. And she said, another quote, a good person to be around, and she had faith in us. Beautiful words from 3 beautiful grandsons. Bonnie's Judaism and the traditions of our people were very, very important to her. In addition to upholding our Jewish traditions, she remained a member with the B'nai B'rith women. When the kids were little, she would volunteer her time. Lisa remembers being schlepped to Menorah Park to help the residents play bingo. And I learned that she loved books. She was an avid reader who could spend an entire day reading. Glenn and Lisa, you knew a mom who was always there for you. And you said that she was the one who held the family together. You described your home as being one that was open, welcoming to everyone. You might even imagine like a revolving door where the front door should be. Everyone came in and out of that house. As I shared moments ago that yesterday, there were a number of those friends and family. The lines are very blurred. The family knows that their relatives are their friends, and the friends are sure that they are related with the same DNA. It's a beautiful thing. But when we sat together and shared the stories, it was just a remarkable moment of a family surrounded truly in love and friendship. Our tradition has taught us that words which come from the heart oftentimes enter directly to the heart. And so in this moment, we do have members of the family who have words in their heart that they so want to share with all of us. First, I would like to call on her children, Lisa and Glenn.
You go. When we were sitting around in shock on Thursday, my cousin Jody said, how do you write about the woman who always wrote the most beautiful letters and notes about everyone she loved? We stole this from Jody, so this will be not the last time you hear this today. This is not going to be easy, but here it goes. I'm not sure if anybody knew this, but the goal of all those notes were to make the person cry. Our mom always gave us a choice to decide if it should be a crier or not, but they ultimately always made us cry, and she loved it. Our mom was the glue to this family. Our parents' home on Wilmington Road was home base for everyone. The doors were always open, and love just poured from that house. So many of you here today sat around the kitchen table, and ate eggs, bagels, and lox on any given Sunday. Sometimes you may have even drunk coffee with their insurance guy, Benny. While our dad was the pillar of strength, our mom was the heart that brought us all together, friends and family alike. When Emily and Brett joined our family, we knew she was thanking God that we finally found our people, and she loved both of them so much, taking their side in most situations, but always taking Emily's side in all situations when it comes to me.
Family was the most important thing to our mom, whether it be a blood relation or not. We think David just realized in the past few years he isn't a blood relative. We love you, David. It was really hard after our dad passed, but she bounced back with the strength we always knew she had. Our mom was one of the smartest people we knew and was as strong in her opinions and convictions. She was a fierce supporter of reproductive rights, and if she didn't have to deal with that, I'm not going to swear, that bleeping walker, she would have been out marching whenever she could. Glenn and I wouldn't be where we are today without her teaching us the values of open-mindedness and the importance of helping others, which we continue to instill in our boys. So, speaking of those boys, we don't even know how to express how much she loved Jerry, Nehemiah, and Miles. They were everything to her, and it really sucks that she's not going to see them grow up. But she will always be in their hearts, and there will always be constant reminders of her as they grow up. Through the notes she wrote in their books, to the family Haggadah, to Big Hanukkah, and so much more. So we're going to end this with a little story. So when I was little, I was playing down the street with little Jimmy Matonis, and he said he loved his mom up to heaven, God, and Jesus. And I thought, wow, that's like a lot of love, and so that's how much I love my mom. So I went home and told my mom that I loved her up to heaven, God, and Jesus. And my mom just looked at her little Jewish daughter and said, "Where did you hear that?" And I said, "Well, that's, how much Jimmy loves his mom, and that's how much I love you." So for the rest of her life, we always sign cards, "I love you up to HGJ." So we love you up to HGJ. And if this made you cry, then she taught us well.
Thank you so much. I want to now call on her nieces and nephews. Jody, don't make me smack you.
Okay.
Hi. I'm just going to preface this that you're going to hear a lot of the same words from all of us because they're the perfect words that describe her. So, how do you find the perfect words for the woman who always had the most thoughtful, compassionate, sincere, and heartfelt words for everyone else on every occasion? Whether it was your wedding, birthday, graduation, baby shower, or just a little pick-me-up note, Aunt Bonnie always had the perfect words that came directly from her heart. I imagine that everyone here today has some version of her heartfelt words to hold dear. Cherish is the feeling that I will hold onto for the rest of my life. I will cherish every memory, phone conversation, family holiday, and the time we spent together. Aunt Bonnie was one of the smartest and strongest women I have ever known. She was so knowledgeable about the world around her, her family history, and even politics. One of her most special traits was her passion and compassion to listen and discuss with others about global issues. Whether she agreed with your beliefs or not, she was always so thoughtful about listening to your questions and sharing her knowledge, but was always brave enough to ask her own questions. She loved a great discussion no matter what the topic was. Aunt Bonnie was never afraid to have the hard conversations. She had some strong opinions and would share them as well as her advice. You didn't have to take it, but we all know she was always right. Aunt Bonnie was always intuitive and so in touch with everyone's feelings. The minute she answered the phone, she always knew how you were feeling. If your call was about something special and wonderful, she was ready to celebrate with you. If you were stressed and needed advice, she always had the perfect words to help solve a problem and calm you down. Aunt Bonnie's strength was endless. She was the glue that kept our family together. I remember when Uncle Mel passed away, she said to me, "How are we going to do life without him?" But in true Aunt Bonnie fashion, she gathered up all her strength to lead the way and hold up our family. I was always so impressed with how Aunt Bonnie never let her health issues or the passing of Uncle Mel take away from her experiencing and living her best life. This was so inspiring to all of us. Aunt Bonnie was always the quick thinker and level-headed person to help get you through a crisis. She had the perfect words and advice to help put things into perspective. Traditions and family gatherings were always so important, and times she cherished more than anything. We all have special memories in our kitchen, whether it was all of us crammed around the tiny table for Uncle Mel's famous Sunday breakfast, or for one-on-one time making a holiday favorite or baking a delicious treat. Every holiday we've celebrated together has Aunt Bonnie's stamp on it. How many families have their own Passover Haggadah? A beautiful tradition we will carry on for many generations. Aunt Bonnie had a way of bringing our entire extended family together. It didn't matter if you were related by blood, marriage, or friendship. She taught us all to love and take care of one another as she always led by example. Aunt Bonnie taught us all the importance of family. Nothing meant more to her than the loves of her life. Her brother Harvey, her husband Mel, her children Glenn and Lisa, and her beautiful grandsons, Jerry, Nehemiah, and Miles. To Glenn, Emily, Lisa, Brett, and the Littles, as we call them, her world was so happy and complete because all of you. Jerry, Nehemiah, and Miles, she loved being your Grammy more than anything in the world. To our dad, you and Aunt Bonnie taught us that family always comes first. There wasn't a single day that would go by where the two of you wouldn't talk at least 3 times a day. You shared everything and had the most special, kind, and sweet relationship. Watching how our dad and Aunt Bonnie have taken care of each other for all of our lives has taught us how to be good siblings, parents, spouses, and cousins. To Glenn and Lisa, just know that you were her most precious, treasured possessions. One final thought is from my dad, a very personal joke that the two of them had shared. Bon, after all these years, I have to admit, the bread was hot. Love you forever and always, Auntie. I miss you so much already.
The universe wobbled last Thursday. The center of the reality for many of us exploded. As Jody said, that kitchen table was the center of reality for so many of us because that's where we got nourishment, both physical and emotional. No matter how far away we wandered, that kitchen table was always there, whether by telephone, text message, or actually there in person. We could go to that kitchen table and get the best cheerleader in the world, including the times that she would say to me, "Now, Shelley," because I was clearly off on a weird tangent. This is all unreal. I heard Lisa say that, and I agree. And it's going to stay unreal until that day that I go to call her, whether it's with something good or something bad, and I won't be able to. Because she was always the first call. She was the first call for all of us, for everyone. So many of you sitting out here. So many people sitting in that room. She knew what was going on in all of our lives. Last year, when I finally got married, she was the first one I introduced my eventual husband to, even though she hated his long hair. And when we planned the ceremony and I needed to choose something borrowed, there's no question. I called Aunt Bonnie and asked if I could borrow something for my most special day from my most special aunt. And then we had our big celebration, and she reigned at the head table with my mother-in-law and my husband and I. And we were all so happy, and we were so happy that she had that time with us last November. Aunt Bonnie is world famous. I love the fact that she used to do international meals for the littles when we were dealing with COVID, and afterwards she would bring them over for international meals just to help them learn more about the world. And the world knows about her too, because I've been fortunate enough to live in a lot of different places, and all the people I met knew about my Aunt Bonnie. May her name be a blessing.
So first of all, I want to say thank you to everyone who has been there for my dad, Lisa, and Glenn over the last couple of days. The love that you have shown our family over these last few days does almost more than anything else to express Aunt Bonnie's legacy. To call Aunt Bonnie the matriarch of our family would really be an understatement. To me, she was almost the personification of our family. She was the focal point around which our family traditions revolved. I have so many memories in that beautiful, beautiful little house in the little bungalow in South Euclid. We talk about the miracle of Hanukkah, and I'll tell you the real miracle was that we all somehow fit around that table at Passover. It defied the laws of physics, I'm pretty sure. But she was the family historian, and she was the family keeper of the stories. She was the person you called when you worried about another family member and needed to talk it through. And she was also the person you got a call from when she was worried about a family member and wanted you to check in with them. But I'm not going to talk anymore about what a wonderful woman, beautiful and intelligent woman Aunt Bonnie was. And she was, and we'll all talk about that and hear that. But honestly, if you're here, you kind of already know that. So if Aunt Bonnie were here with us and she could talk to us today, I think she'd tell us that she left without a lot of regrets. She married and spent almost 50 years with the love of her life. She had 2 children who she loved and couldn't have been more proud of for all the world. She had all of her nieces and a handful of really awesome nephews, if I can say so. She had her great nieces and her great nephews who thought really more of her as a grandmother than anything else. I always think that one of the most special things about Aunt Bonnie is her found family. The people that she brought into her life and brought into ours that eventually just became family members around the table at celebrations and at family milestones. We all felt loved by her and cherished by her in unique and special ways. And if I'm really being honest, I think we all kind of secretly think that we're her favorites. So,
It's not a secret.
I shouldn't say it. Never mind. Later at the Shiva, I'll tell a story. I think she'd tell us that she found her life to be complete when Jerry, Nehemiah, and Miles came into it. Guys, she loved you more than anything else in the world, and she loved being your Grammy more than anything else in the world. I think if she were here, she'd tell us, look, do your sad, do your crying for as long as you need, but then you're going to pick yourself up, you're going to dust yourself off, and you're going to move on, which is exactly what she did when she lost Mel, and exactly what she'd expect of us. So Aunt Bonnie, I love you. I will miss you, and I will try very hard to keep a piece of you with me and bring you with me with whatever I do. Thank you.
Okay, it's supposed to be 1 or 2 minutes. We'll see if I can follow suit. Not a lot left to say, so some of it is just a recap. Glue, family, love. You heard that repeatedly. One side note. The other person on that date, that first date, my Uncle Harvey, on the other side of the family.
Not that Uncle Harvey.
Not that Uncle Harvey.
Yeah, just a pointer. And going through this, I said, oh, everybody's saying the things I'm going to say. Well, unfortunately, I lost my mother very young. Not very young, but I was 24. Aunt Bonnie, Uncle Mal became my parents, surrogate parents, after that. And for my wife. Not only that, she was my kids' grandparents, as was pointed out earlier, for everyone. My aunt's voice was so clear, made you strong, made her strong, and it's the one voice in my entire life that I'll never forget. It's special, and it's my summary of who she is: family, glue, love. Thank you.
Okay. Well, there's not much left to be said, except for one thing. Aunt Bonnie was cool as sugar. She was always cool. So, I was always, through my troubles and my triumphs, she was always proud of me. And I never heard her yell. Did any of you guys ever hear Aunt Bonnie yell? Except for once. I struggled with arithmetic, and I didn't understand multiplication. So the only time I heard her yet once was because everybody took me to Uncle Mel to learn multiplication. And she didn't think that was a good idea. And no, she never yelled, and she was cool. And everybody said everything there's to say, so that's it.
In the spirit of L'Adore Vador, from one generation to the next, we want to finally call on the great nieces and great nephews to come forward.
We just parked our clown car out front. So we're pretty picked over at this point, but I have the great honor to be the oldest of the great aunt generation here. And I got to enjoy 6 glorious years of Aunt Bonnie all to myself until all of these people showed up. But, that house was was everything, as everyone's mentioned. And in that house, I got to see all the Boardmans date, get married, and then get repopulated with all these wonderful people. And one of the things that I always think about with Aunt Bonnie is she was just love personified in a person. And that house was an extension of that. And one of the things Aunt Bonnie always would say to me, I told her, it's probably 14, 15, and I said, Cleveland is just where the love is, and that house was the center of that. So.
As we all know by now, Aunt Bonnie had such a great deal of faith and love for her entire family. Her unconditional love taught us to love one another in the same way that she loved us. And truly, as you heard before, we may be the great nieces and nephews, but she's our grandmother. And, she took the time to have a very special connection with every single one of us to make us all feel extremely special. And for me, that voice will always echo that. I will always be her little Evie.
So whenever I think of our Aunt Bonnie, my mind just instantly goes back to hollow French toast. I actually just tried making it this past weekend, and I cut it too thick, but it's definitely not Aunt Bonnie's level, but the attempt was made. But I also remember a discussion that we had when I was about 12 years old. So for those who don't know, I had the option of becoming bar mitzvah, and I was genuinely considering it, but I had a conversation with Bonnie on the phone, and she said, regardless of what you decide to do, we love you and we're so proud of you all the same. And she was like, if you do end up doing this, you have to give it your best. You have to put in everything you can and really put your best foot forward. And I've been thinking about that conversation a lot lately. All we can do is our best, and that's enough. So I think she saw that in everyone here. So let's try to do our best for her. And then my brother Josh, he couldn't be here today. He's currently serving, so he wrote something out for Aunt Bonnie. Aunt Bonnie was our great aunt, but felt more like a grandmother to us in every way. She always made sure we were well fed, had someone to talk to, and more importantly, someone was there to listen. Aunt Bonnie was one of my biggest advocates before leaving for the service. She knew it would be a difficult road ahead, but part of me believes she saw the same sense of obligation and duty she saw in Uncle Mel. Aunt Bonnie made sure to celebrate everything with us, from holidays to achievements and life milestones. Aunt Bonnie showed many of us what it means to be Jewish and the roots of our heritage. I remember being young and was fascinated by her glass table full of dreidels. She explained the rules of the game to me and also made sure to have a big bag of chocolate gelt at the ready. She wrote our family Haggadah, and every year on Passover, reading from that Haggadah meant so much. I know we will continue to share that love of tradition with her, the younger kids, and the future generations to come. Holidays will not be the same without you, Aunt Bonnie. We miss you, and we love you very much.
Sorry. Aunt Bonnie is one of the most special people that has ever walked this earth. I can proudly say Aunt Bonnie was like a grandmother to me, a grandmother to all of you. Ethan, we went through a lot with Aunt Bonnie and Uncle Mel, and they were always there for us. She was always there for me, constantly offering words of encouragement, and she truly believed in my abilities, even when I doubted myself. I had such a strong relationship with Aunt Bonnie and Uncle Mel. Some of my fondest memories growing up were the times I spent with them, whether it was during holidays, family gatherings, or just going over to that house on Wilmington. Aunt Bonnie always had a unique way of making everyone feel welcomed and loved and appreciated. some of my fondest memories of that house, being up in that playroom with Aunt Bonnie and Uncle Mel. There was a little kitchen set, and Aunt Bonnie and Uncle Mel would always sit up there with me, and I would make them food, and we'd sit down and watch Bob the Builder together. And then as I grew older and we lost Uncle Mel, I became Aunt Bonnie's personal IT man, and going over there, she would tell me what was wrong, and then I'd go there, and she'd say, "I need you to fix my printer. Something's wrong with my printer." And I'd be like, "All right, Aunt Bonnie." And she'd say, "But I want you to make sure all of my photos are still on my computer, even when I would just fix the printer." And we would eat bagels and lox when I'd go over there and help her fix stuff. And we'd talk about Uncle Mel driving me with one of his clients, Chris. And we'd talk about just me going and visiting her at a Maripath. And I'm going to hold all those memories with me, Aunt Bonnie. I'm never going to forget you. Thank you. So when I sat down to start writing this, I had to really think about how I really wanted to start. So the best way to think of how I want to start was in the beginning of what I remember of Aunt Bonnie and Uncle Mel. I have so many great memories of being with Aunt Bonnie and Uncle Mel. My earliest memories of Uncle Mel was my own personal Uber driver to Fairmount Temple for 2 years, driving me to and from preschool every day. I remember sometimes we'd take a ride out to Ameripath to see Aunt Bonnie at work. I always knew where her desk was, and I don't think Uncle Mel could keep up with me because as soon as those doors opened to let us in, I took off running to go find her. Seeing her smile always brightened my day, and she had a lot of those smiles. She would teach Lily and Sammy and I how to bake. Some things we baked were some little turkey cupcakes for Thanksgiving and chocolate-covered strawberries and pretzels and many more. And we made a huge mess of the kitchen, but she never cared. As long as we were there with her and baking with her, she always was happy. As I grew up and went to elementary, middle school, and high school, she would always call me and ask, "What did you learn today? What did you learn at school today?" And of course, Grandpa knows. Most of the time my answer is nothing. "You just got me on a bad day." And then, of course, they would share the same line. "You're just wasting the taxpayers' money." I was so glad she got to see me graduate high school and go off to college this year. In the letter she wrote me in my book, she said that I was her special boy. Yes, I may have been, but I always knew I needed to pass that same mentality down to her boys, Jerry, Nehemiah, and Miles. I always told her how I was feeling about school, and every time she would give the same response: "Ethan, take it one day at a time, and you'll figure it out." Sure enough, she was right every time. I always knew she had that can of bubbly water in the fridge for me, and I knew that I had to have it with her. It was our special drink together. I was so excited to tell her I made the dean's list, and I knew that she was extremely proud of me and all my accomplishments. I was glad I was able to share that with her in our last conversation. Auntie, I love you and miss you so much.
Aunt Bonnie always loved to hear about our lives. Whenever we called, we gave her every detail. And I called a lot. Every weekend, without fail, I called and updated her with the news of the week. We'd talk about school, we'd talk about politics, we'd talk about random things I walked by on the street. But the last conversation I had with Aunt Bonnie was a call like any other. We greeted each other. I asked how she was feeling. She asked how my birthday went. And then we said our goodbyes. At the end of the call, she made sure to say how much she loved me. These calls were just a normal part of my weekly routine, but each one was the highlight of my week for years, and I will dearly miss them.
Aunt Bonnie and I have always had a special connection because of our shared love of social justice. She used to tell me about how much she wanted to go to a protest with me. I know she had really high aspirations for me. She would always say that I was going to change the world. Sometimes I'm not sure I'll be able to live up to it, but I know that she will be proud of me no matter what I do. Aunt Bonnie believed in all of us. She wanted all of us to know that we could accomplish anything we put our minds to. So when each of us graduated high school, she gave us a copy of Oh, the Places You'll Go with a note. I have mine, and there's a 20-year age gap, so she's been buying this book for a long time. She reminded each of us that life has twists and turns, but she knew we would find our way. And we all thought it was best to leave you with a passage from the book that embodies what Aunt Bonnie hoped you would take away from it. On and on you will hike, and I know you'll hike far and face up to your problems, whatever they are, and you will succeed. Yes, you will indeed. 98 3/4% guaranteed. Kid, you'll move mountains. Today is your day. Your mountain is waiting, so go get on your way.
Thank you all for those beautiful words of love. What a tribute. Friends, before we conclude our service, just a couple brief announcements. If anyone wishes to make a contribution in memory of Bonnie, the family has suggested that you might consider either Planned Parenthood of Greater Ohio or the United States Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. Also, immediately following our service here, we will process to the Mount Olive Cemetery, and following the interment, the family will receive visitors at the Sherry Park Apartments North Building. The address is 2111, and that will go this evening until 8 p.m. There will also be visitation tomorrow from 1 until 4, and again from 6 until 8. At this time, as you are able, I invite you to rise for the memorial prayer, the El Maleh Rachamim, as we ask God to protect Bonnie's soul. El Maleh Rachamim, shochen במרומים, המסי מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה במעלות קדושים וטהורים, כי זוהר הרקיע מזהירים. את נשמת ברינדל מהשבת פייגל ויוסל, שהלכה לעולמה בגן עדן תחי מנוחתה. אנא ברחמים אסתירך בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, ותצרור בצרורך ימת נשמתה. אדוני חונחלתה וינוח בשלום על משכבה ונאמר אמן. O merciful God, who dwells on high, who is full of compassion, grant perfect rest beneath the shelter of your divine presence among the holy and pure, who shine as the brightness of the firmament, to our dear departed Bonnie, who has gone now to her eternal home. May Bonnie's soul be bound up in the bonds of eternal life, and grant that her memory inspire all of us to noble and consecrated living. And to this we say, Amen. You may be seated. Boachem l'shalom, tzeitchem l'shalom. As you have come here today in peace, may you go forth in peace. Thank you.